Welcome to Coast Files. This is our very first episode. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Megan.
I'm Chantel.
I love the dramatic pause. That was so good.
It's because I was swallowing my banana.
Chantel is our snacker.
Yeah, sorry.
So this is, like I said, our very first episode. This podcast is going to be about largely the ocean water base, but we're talking about true crime, mystery, science,
paranormal
maybe.
things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All things eerie and spooky with that coast connection. So with that, I will be starting us off with our very first episode.
Woo! I'm so excited.
How are you ladies feeling this morning? Any nervousness?
I'm not nervous at all. I've only had nervous poops like 4 times.
I was about to say I only pooped once today, so I'm okay.
Feeling good.
I have barely finished my coffee because I was so anxiously trying to set this stuff up.
Well, as we know, I tried to get my coffee by going directly through my pants, so it's
yes. I did coffee still today.
I did hear you can absorb coffee through the skin, so you were really just trying to, test out. Yeah,
just
probably more
ways,
efficient.
Yeah, that's right. Drinking probably is easier.
Yeah, we'll probably need a drink after today.
I mean, it's nearly noon, so and the bar is right there, so I'm close.
It's actually already noon in Nova Scotia, where we're all from.
Ooh, okay. So who cares about the 5 o'clock somewhere rule? It's 12 o'clock somewhere.
Exactly. We're not alcoholics, I promise.
Well, so I will kick us off with my first episode today. This story is actually pretty sentimental because it comes from my hometown, also Chantel's hometown of Halifax, Nova Scotia. This is something I learned about as a child, and I was really surprised as an adult that it's not that well known.
Like, I know. Whenever I
know, crazy.
I know you guys already know my topic, but
yeah.
For the audience, I bet you're not going to know this topic. So why I'm sharing today is that I actually think that, with historical stories, there's actually usually a lot to learn. There's a lesson to be learned. And that's definitely the case with this. And with that, this is the story of the Halifax explosion.
This is such a good, going back to our roots,
Yeah, exactly. You probably already know this fact, but this is the largest accidental explosion in history. So,
I didn't know that.
I did not know that fact.
Oh, yeah.
So you're already teaching us.
There's also.
Do you mean in the history of Canada or in the entire recorded history? What?
Yeah, wow. So there's lots of different facts out there, and some were saying I've also heard it's the largest man-made explosion before the atomic bomb as well.
Okay.
But it's the largest accidental one. So that's a little bit different than a lot of the other ones that have happened. So
I feel like it's kind of weird to be known for an accidental explosion. It's
yeah.
Ooh, whoops.
But it's also been a lot of sources do say it's the largest man-made explosion before the atomic bomb. So before Hiroshima, this was the largest. And that's considering number of people who died and the amount of damage and the magnitude and everything.
Yeah.
So before I get into exactly what happened, I want to just give a little background on Halifax and specifically Halifax Harbour during the time of December 6th, 1917. So this is during World War I. Halifax is the capital city of Nova Scotia on the east coast of Canada on the Atlantic Ocean. When the British first came to Halifax in 1749, they saw that this land was going to be very valuable. So they basically violently invaded it, took over from the Mi'kmaq people, and established a fort in Halifax.
White people, man. They just
so they actually, and what I've read too, is they end up bringing so many settlers over there, they outnumbered the amount of First Nations people that were already there. So it was really, they didn't have much chance to stop that from happening. Yeah. So Halifax was a very strategic port because it's the last major port between New England and Europe. It's also It's for commerce and trade. It connects to all the other major cities in Canada, like Toronto, Montreal.
New York City, down south.
Well, yeah, it's a close port to New York for sure. And it also has the second deepest natural harbor in the world, which is very strategic.
I think I read that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also ice-free year-round because of Nova Scotia's climate. It's a little more temperate being on the coast. So for those reasons, it was very important for Britain to take this port, and they did. So
did they ever? I know.
So if you go to my slides, and for anyone curious, look up a photo of Halifax and Halifax Harbour. You'll see there that it's actually a very long harbor that stretches inward. They have the mouth of the harbor. This was actually another great reason to have Halifax on your side was it was very easily fortified. So there were forts all around the entrance of the harbor. As you go in, Point Pleasant Park had fortifications. There's McNabb's Island, George's Island, and then if you were to somehow get past all these forts to try to invade Halifax, the Citadel has this 8-point star fort that at any angle, if someone were coming up to the Citadel, they could basically take you out. So Halifax is very well fortified. It was actually never attacked, even though it was such a strategic port during the war.
I actually went to Citadel as an adult, and like going back as an adult, it's so cool. I won't lie.
So cool.
Yeah.
And
as a kid, it's just like whatever.
Apparently.
Yeah, which makes it even better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, yeah.
I took Eric there, and he loved it.
Yeah, it was an ex of mine that I took years ago, and he was like, "This is so cool," and I was like, "It really is."
And it's not even that much taller than the city, but you feel like you can see everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's an old historical site. And a funny story. When I was in high school, and my little brother was like 3 years old or something. So him and Connor, you guys know, obviously my younger but still older brother, we all went down together, and Connor walked headfirst into a stop sign and almost knocked himself out. So like that memory,
told me the story.
So good. And I think we were trying to like sneak in the back way so you didn't have to pay. So that was like the karma. He like almost knocked us out.
There you go.
Yeah. I hohave he learned his lesson.
Karma.
No, I think he went on to have a different kind of career. I mean, he's a cop.
You met Connor?
he's doing fine. I mean, he's a cop now, but you know, that was a whole different life.
Yeah.
Life of a thief,
a rebel.
Yeah, I said a rebel trying to steal. Well, and probably what was it back then? Like $10 to get in.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, it's probably by donation or something.
Yeah, right. Donation.
Yeah, it's not expensive, but if you are in Halifax, you should definitely check it out. So,
and pay for it. Pay for it, please.
Yeah. It goes to like the reconstruction and upkeep of it. Please pay for it.
No, I feel like I'm gonna make a donation online right now. It's all coming back. I'm like, oh my god, we didn't pay. We broke in.
I've never been in the clock tower though. I would love to go in that one day. I don't think it's open to the public.
I've just seen it. Looks cool.
Yeah. Very iconic Halifax. So
it seems it.
If you are in Halifax, you have to go to the Citadel. But yeah, it was never attacked, so it's in great shape.
Fingers crossed it stays that way.
Luckily, I feel like it's safer today than it ever has been.
Yeah, right. Good.
Another part about the harbor that's interesting is there's a very narrow part, and it's called the Narrows, which is very appropriate for the
creative.
And it's like, I think it's shortest point. It's only 1,000 feet across. So very.
This still sounds huge. Like,
really, I think it sounds not. It doesn't sound very big at all to me because I'm like, how wide are ships? Like,
okay, well, when you compare it to a ship, okay, yeah, I guess. But I mean, as a human, I'm like,
I wouldn't want to swim it, but I could.
I could.
Time me.
Hold your breath the whole way or it doesn't count.
Okay.
All right. So now that we know a little bit about Halifax and how busy it would have been at this time because it was such a strategic port, you had so many ships coming in and out, carrying supplies, taking troops to Europe to fight in the war, bringing them back. So Halifax always had an influx of soldiers and sailors coming in. It was a very busy time for Halifax, and it was growing rapidly. So one area in particular that was growing is called Richmond, and that was it's going to be at the center of our story today. So a lot of people were growing businesses here. It was a very working class neighborhood that around this time was starting to become very prosperous. So let's take us to the ships involved in this disaster. So the first one is the SS Mont Blanc. This was a French ammunitions ship. It was being loaded in New York City with a ton of explosives on around December 1st, 1917. It was assigned a captain, Captain Aimé Lemedec.
That's a French name.
That's a
French
French
ass
ass name.
He was French.
Yeah.
What? I know. And he's also piloting a French ship. So it all checks out.
So you'd think that'd be like good luck, but
it could have been, but as you'll come to hear, that it was not very.
I mean, the title of the episode is the Halifax Explosion.
Yeah.
So
foreshadowing.
I know.
So he was not a very experienced captain with the boat he was assigned, the Mont Blanc. This was a pretty big boat, 320 feet long. And he also wasn't experienced in the cargo it was holding. So when it was being loaded in New York, it was first packed with wood and lined with soft materials because the stuff that they put on the ship was so explosive that they had to pack it in a way that would prevent it from going off. So
this is terrifying. Like, you could not pay me to be on this ship. Like,
well,
let alone man
on the ship with him. So people had to do this. And
40?
They were also, I had 40 crew members come on. So what was on the ship was 2,366 tons of picric acid, which is similar to TNT. But it was determined during the war to be even like more volatile and stuff. So it was very popular to use during World War I.
Okay.
62 tons of gun cotton.
Gun cotton? I don't even know what that is.
Gun powder stuff. Like
is that the thing that they would like light at the end or something?
That's
I don't know. I could be making it up.
So that's a fuse.
I don't know what timeline we're in.
Honestly, out of all this material, gun cotton was the least that I researched. So
sorry.
Thanks for your question.
So sorry. So I have to assume
this is the thing we want to know the most about.
Yeah. So if it's called gun cotton, I imagine it's on the track of gunpowder.
Maybe it's like gun ammunition for guns.
So. And that's all I need. I probably never think about it again after today. So
it's arguably
it's literally just like what they would light on to like start the fire. Flammable compound formed by nitrating cellulose through explosive
now
exposure
I get
to a mixture of nitric acid. So they would use the gun cotton with the nitric acid. Got it.
So
done.
All right, ladies,
Google. Sorry.
250 tons of TNT as well. So this was a pretty deadly concoction, but at the last minute, they decided to load the top with benzol, which is a fuel, which ignites easily. So they basically put like a fuse on top of all their ammunition. And while they spent a lot of time strategically packing the ammunition, the fuel, the benzol they put on top was not stored that well. It was kind of just put on barrels around. On top. It was, it wasn't good. So
how drunk were these sailors?
Well, they actually had very strict rules on this boat. Like the captain was like, absolutely, you can't smoke. Like absolutely,
of course.
Like,
any
sort of
think about that. Holy shit!
Could light this fuel easily. It was like they had to be so careful.
And then also includes romantic sparks. None.
On top of that, during this time, going even with this floating bomb that they were traveling with, when they left New York, they had to be so careful because at this time during World War I, there were German U-boats everywhere. So these were big submarines that the Germans used to their advantage. That honestly, it was like I think they sunk something like 3,000 ships up until this time in 1917 of Allied forces. Like
on the East Coast or just in general?
Just in general. So men would be stuck in these like long cylindrical subs. I think it was 25 to 50 men from weeks to months And there was like one bathroom on board, and their whole mission was just to sink Allied ships. So, and they were pretty successful. Obviously, many of them died, but unfortunately, they were very successful. So, what England decided to do to kind of prevent them from doing this was they established a convoy system. So it was basically a group of ships travel together in like, protection in numbers.
Yeah.
So that way a ship like Mont Blanc could kind of be sheltered around other ships. So it wouldn't be attacked because, if it was, it would cause obviously a huge explosion.
And then also all those supplies.
All their supplies, exactly. It would be a huge win for Germany, which we didn't want. So the reason for Mont Blanc going to Halifax is because there was a convoy that will be leaving for Europe shortly. So they wanted to join this convoy essentially to have that.
So it kind of like snuck up the coast to meet up with the other groups, and then this boat was going to go like all across to Europe. I find that so crazy that like, go over these ships used to do that. I find that still so wild.
Yeah, it's terrifying to think you have to cross the Atlantic, and especially that time,
and especially with like you're on the bomb.
Yeah. Like imagine at any moment you're like, what if the boat rocks too much, something spills out, like things.
I don't think I'd sleep the entire time.
No,
they were very stressed, especially for this first leg of the journey, because they didn't have that protection going from New York to Halifax.
Yeah.
So when they arrived at Halifax, it was the evening of December 5th. So unfortunately, they arrived just about half an hour too late to enter the harbor, because at night, again, these German U-boats, Halifax set up submarine nets. So if you look at that picture I have at the Mont Blanc on slide 3, there's also submarine nets below there. So those were put up, I think, at a couple in the harbor. So at the end of once it was dark out, essentially the submarine nets would be up, and they wouldn't come back, open up again until the morning.
I had no idea what that photo was. So they would just like close the door to the harbor. That's so neat.
Yeah. So another thing to note as well is during normal times, a ship like the Mont Blanc would never have been allowed in Halifax Harbour because of all the explosives. It was wartime, so the Admiralty laws had been in place where exceptions were being made.
Yeah.
So we already had an exception being made there. Another exception was normally an ammunition ship like the Mont Blanc would have to fly a red flag to indicate the cargo on board.
That like they're loaded.
But again, fully loaded. Again, during this time of war, it would have been a target of these U-boats, because
it's like the perfect way to have a massive accident
is happening. Yeah. Yes. So they arrived a little bit too late, and they end up having to stay out of the harbor for that night. Meanwhile, if you go to slide 4, I'm going to talk about the other ship that was involved in this explosion, the SS Emo. So meanwhile, in Halifax Harbour, sitting in Bedford Basin, was the Emo. It was gearing up to also leave, and it was planning on leaving on December 5th.
Busy day.
Yes.
In a small harbor.
At this time, actually, the harbor had all these people working. They had to have harbor pilots jump on board your ship to help you navigate in the harbor. So they had a lot of people working at the harbor to help facilitate all these ships that were coming in and out.
It was bustling, you could say.
It was bustling. So on December 5th, the captain of the Emo, Håkon From, this is a neutral Belgian relief ship. Its purpose was to leave Halifax, pick up supplies for aid in New York, and then go to Europe. Okay. So he was pretty anxious to leave, but they were waiting for a coal pickup, and that got delayed. So with this delay, they missed leaving before the submarine nets came up, and they were stuck in Halifax for another night. So, and there was also some issues around this communication too. Like, not everyone knew the ship was still there. They thought it was leaving.
Down to communication, you guys, honestly.
Some things were relaxed. And again, coming back to the time it was, things were getting, like, regulations were getting a little bit sidelined because of the war. So the next morning, Emo is ready to go. Like the captain already wanted to leave. So exactly. So as the Emo is leaving, because there's so many ships in the basin, they're kind of forced to go out a little bit further than normal. Ship laws have it so you go on the right starboard side to pass, or you're on the right side. People coming our way on the left side, just like driving in Canada, the US. So those are generally the laws, but you can always switch lanes with people if it makes sense. But you just have to indicate ideally to the other captain, like, this is my course of action, this is yours. So 1 whistle, I'm going to stay in my lane. 2 whistles, I'm going to go in the opposite lane. And 3 is I'm going to reverse. So those were the signals for captains.
Just so like a little tiny whistle or like a big whistle?
A horn. Yeah. Okay. I'd be like, that's what I'm talking about.
It's like she's on the boat or on the door in the water with a little whistle. Like, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, no, it's
okay. So like a giant, like a steam whistle, maybe like a big, Okay. In my head, I was like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
like here's your whistle. Okay,
here's your real horn. Yes,
right.
I'm
sorry. That's so stupid that I thought that. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
In my head, I'm like, that makes no sense. Okay.
Big loud whistle.
Good. Okay.
So as
although it didn't help,
leaving, it encountered another ship, the SS Clara, and that ship wanted to go on the port side. So it forced Emo to automatically, as it entered the Narrows, go into the other path, the opposite path.
Okay.
Putting it on that course. Again, we talked about the Narrows, how narrow it is.
for ships at least.
About 1,000 feet across, 300, a little over 300 meters. Okay. So after this, it encountered another tugboat, the Stella Maris, and it was pulling a couple like barges on it into the basin. So when it encountered this boat, it ended up making sense to just stay on the left side and continue that course, allowing the tugboat to pass on the opposite.
So chaotic. I'm like stressed out.
Yes. Other accounts say because Captain Fromm was so anxious to get out of there, he was actually going quite fast, like faster than the speed limits of the harbor.
He had road rage.
So you combine that, he's like, get me out of here. Like, why would you want to leave such a beautiful city? I don't understand. But
idiot. Here we are, all of us
not living there anymore.
But during this time, people did have a lot of strict timelines, or like timelines they were trying to adhere to. So these combinations put Emo on a path that was on the opposite side of the harbor. Meanwhile, the Mont Blanc is entering the harbor, past the submarine nets as they had opened, and was ready to just get into Halifax and relax for a few days before this treacherous voyage. So if you look at slide 5, you can see the path, which I will share a picture of that later for everyone listening.
I think that would be helpful because it's very detailed.
Well, watching, not listening, but yeah.
Yeah, especially if you want to get a good, like, we know Halifax, but it would help for people who aren't familiar with the harbor. But anyway, so the Mont Blanc's coming in, they're on the right side, the lane they're supposed to be in.
Okay.
Mont Blanc singles 1 little big whistle horn to Emo to let them know we're staying on the starboard side. We're staying in our lane because we see you coming, but
I'm like sweating
here.
Well, also like they probably shouldn't be making too many tight turns.
Well, exactly. And another point is the Emo is actually pretty much empty. So when you have a big ship like that doesn't have cargo, it's going to actually be coming, like, its propeller's a little bit out of the water. So it's harder for it to turn as well. So
I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So there's so many, especially when you get big ships like that. Like Emo is also a pretty big ship.
They all seem, like, based on the photos, like massive.
Yeah. I forget the exact size of the Emo, but it was like 320 feet for the Mont Blanc, and they're very similar size. So Emo responds with 2 whistles, like, no, we're going to go to the left. So then the Mont Blanc captain, Lemedic, and the harbor pilot for the Mont Blanc, last name was Mackey. They were like, what's okay, but we're here. And unfortunately, when they entered the harbor, I should have mentioned that they still did not hang this red flag to indicate.
But you did say that they probably wouldn't have.
In the harbor, they could have, though, because it's in the harbor. Okay. But the captain was like, it's not necessary. So they probably should have for safety, but given the time, it wasn't a requirement. So very few people knew the cargo that was on the Mont Blanc.
I feel like I'd like to know who I'm sailing past. Like, if you're full of explosives, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go way over here and give you all kinds of room.
Especially in a busy harbor.
I know. Where things are just like
this harbor's bumping. Like, it's not the time to be like, it's cool. Everyone will figure it out.
So they can just tell that I'm a very important ship. So it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm sure the email would have gone way out of the way.
100% would.
They're kind of, from what I gather, they were just, we're on this path already. Everyone else keeps going on the other side. You can go on the other side too.
It's kind of like when you're when you're walking down the sidewalk and like you're on the right side where you're supposed to be, and someone's power walking. And you're like, you know what? I'm not going to move because fuck you. You're on my side.
This book I read, The Great Halifax Explosion. It's a great book, by the way, by John U. Bacon. That was kind of the main book I used for this. He basically called the game a chicken, and that's kind of what
100%. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. But the stakes are so high.
So high. So the Mont Blanc's coming in, and they're like, well, no, like, we're staying on this side. So the captain actually moves even further to the Dartmouth side, which is on the east side.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And try and hope that the emo would just take their initial. They also signaled first, so usually if you signal first, you get the lane. But
dibs. I call dibs.
Exactly. Yeah. They were like, we dibs this. We're gonna just go a little further to stake our claim on this lane. Of course, this can be dangerous too, because as you get closer to the shoreline, you don't want to risk. You don't want to risk, hitting the bottom. Anyway, as they get closer, they're about 150 feet away at this point. And they're like,
that is so close.
Someone's got to give. So at the last moment, the Mont Blanc was like, all right, fine. We'll go port. We'll go left. So they started turning to the left. At the very same time, the emo signaled 3 blasts, which indicate reverse.
Oh, okay.
And in doing so, actually,
I thought they were going to double down.
No, see from the photo, if they had continued going the direction they had been going, this probably would have been fine. But what they did is, last moment, they also freaked out, put in reverse, which actually swung the bow of their ship to the right. So you'll see that where they collided was on the starboard side of the Mont Blanc and the starboard tip of the emo.
Which makes sense.
So basically, they both started eventually going in the same direction again because of...
They both, like, at one point were like, oh crap, like we're in the same lane, let's both turn, and that didn't go too well.
And because of how close they are to the shore, you couldn't turn the other way, because then you may like go onto the sandy shore part, like what is the front, what's the front of the boat called again? Bow's the front.
Yeah, so it was just a very tragic timing of them both redirecting at the last moment, but one hoping the other one would just continue in their path.
Men, right?
Right. There was no women on board.
Hell no.
So no women were on board. So this actually wasn't a big collision. It was very light. If there had been no ammunitions involved, the ships probably would have just been on their way. That's how...
Really? Like there was no like damage, really?
Not a lot of damage. But what happened when the emo moved away from the Mont Blanc, spark was created, which lit the fuel.
What did I say about sparks, you guys?
All the fuel. Yeah. So again, if they hadn't put this dangerous fuel on board on the last moment, it might
holy crap,
God!
Because all the ammunitions below had been sandwiched between wood and other soft materials that would
super not flammable wood,
Well, it would protect like the TNT and stuff
Yeah.
from being jostled and exploding. So
It was a cushion, but also a flammable cushion.
Yeah, I mean, like what else would they use? Like, I can't think of anything else that's not soft that wouldn't get on fire.
So the crew quickly realized that this fire was no match for them. They cannot put it out. They tried. They had to abandon ship. The captain was a little bit like, I should stay with my ship, but someone convinced him, like, there's nothing you can do right now. You're just going to die.
For nothing.
There were thoughts about him trying to like stay on it and like steer it, but I think there was just so much flames. It's just like you can't do anything.
That's so scary.
So they left on lifeboats and they paddled to the Dartmouth shore, which is the opposite side of Halifax. Meanwhile, the ship ablaze started floating towards the Halifax side.
There's no one on board.
No one is on board. No. There's different accounts. One of the book I read that said that they didn't really even try that hard to warn people, but other people said they tried to yell it, but it was just, chaotic. And they also speak French, like a lot of people. Halifax.
I mean, English, but you're gonna yell from what? From the Dartmouth side to the Halifax side? Like that makes no sense.
Yeah, well, so some ships came by to try to help. There was one ship that brought a fire ship over to try to put out the fire. This happened at 8:46 in the morning.
Okay.
On December 6th, 1917.
So
that's when the actual collisions happened.
Yeah.
That's when the fire started. So at this time, the fire started blazing, and very few people, like I said, knew about the ammunition on board. So it was not well known. But one was Lieutenant Commander James Murray at the harbor office had notified staff, and one of those being Vince Coleman. So you've probably heard of Vince Coleman from
our boy Vince. If you are Canadian, you know Vince Coleman.
Yeah, you know. He's been featured. He was truly a hero this day.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes that commercial still makes me cry a little bit.
I know. He was a
come
trained
on,
dispatcher.
Vince, come on.
Acknowledge.
So
he, as soon as he got this word, he knew that this was not going to end well, that this ship was going to blow. And it was coming closer and closer to the Halifax side. So
sorry, just really quick. So did he know that it had explosives? Sorry, maybe I missed that.
Someone told him.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Just after it was already on fire.
So
that's when he found out.
So he was like one of the only people that knew that was like a literal powder keg.
That was in the commercial too, wasn't it? I think that was in the commercial where he gets told that. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's just so scary.
The citizens of Halifax did not know. So while this is happening, let me set the stage a little bit. What's happening here?
I hate this.
People see a ship on fire. They're mesmerized. They don't know.
Guilty.
Ammunition on it.
So I would totally watch the ship burn. Sorry.
Exactly. So, and this was just before 9 a.m. So, people are going to work at this time. Children are going to school. They're getting distracted. They see a ship on fire. A lot of children just like, all right, school can wait. I got to do this.
Oh my gosh.
So also people at home were looking out their window, watching this unfold without any knowledge of what was going to happen. So not many people knew what was going on, but Vince, he told his staff, leave, run. This is not going to end well. And stayed behind himself. He was a trained dispatcher. He knew there was a train coming into the city, scheduled to arrive very shortly with 300 people on it. So his heroism was sending a telegram to warn the train to not come into the city. Now, this was surprising to me. Apparently, the train may have already been stopping anyway for other reasons, but you'll come to know that his message actually played a pivotal role in the rescue of a lot of people from Halifax, because once things happen, there's not phone lines or no telegrams can be sent. So his message actually got out before anything happened. That started the chain reaction of people hearing about what was going on and sending help. So,
oh my God. So if he had also left, it would have been
this message actually did save people. whether or not
it was a train
stopped as terrain or not. The train did stop. It's just some sources say it was going to stop anyway, but his message was still vital, and he's still a hero. So
Vince, we love you, Vince.
Vince.
Yeah, Vince is the best.
Yeah. And there's other heroes I'm going to talk about too as the story goes on, but he was definitely a very important person. You'll see his photo on slide 6. So, like I said, this time the ship's on fire. There's people detouring, people coming to their window. One girl in particular, she's actually featured at the Maritime Museum in Halifax, and she was featured in this book quite a bit. So I'm going to talk about her. Her name's Barbara Orr. She was 14 years old.
Just a little one.
Yeah, her father had a business in Richmond, the neighborhood, which was right at the pier of where the ship was heading to. Her family had 6 children, including herself, and she had a little brother who loved to look out the window at the ships coming in, which during Halifax's time was a daily thing. So he'd receive binoculars. He was always looking out the window. So at this time, her little brother and one of her other siblings had actually just gone out to get a better look at what was going on. So like I said, people are looking out their window. People are gathering, getting closer and closer.
It's a spectacle for sure.
Yes. In 1/15 of a second at 9:04 35 seconds a.m. on December 6th, Halifax was completely devastated. The Mont Blanc's cargo heated to a point where the cargo detonated, causing this catastrophic blast. So like I've already said, this was the largest accidental explosion in history. It was a fifth the size of the atomic bomb.
Oh my God.
Atomic bomb that dropped on Hiroshima. So just to give you some context of how big this was. The explosion had over 2.9 kilotons of power. So 2,925 tons of power. The blast spread at a speed of 3,400 miles per hour. That's 5,400 kilometers per hour. It demolished all buildings within a 2-mile radius, and it instantly killed at least 1,600 people.
Holy moly. And I don't think I ever knew. I don't think I ever knew it was that many people.
Yeah, I think they upped that number to 2,000.
Oh my God.
So, but I think 1,600 were just like gone instantly. Like people were blown out of their shoes. Like people were just decapitated. Like,
oh my God. Right. Because stuff would have been like flying around too.
Exactly.
Jesus.
9,000 people were wounded right away. So basically, when this happened,
just imagine, all the crap flying. So if you're not in the blast zone, maybe stuff's falling on your house. Like,
yes. So there was a huge cloud, kind of like a mushroom type cloud that had appeared. The temperature internally when this happened rose to 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my God. It's like a volcano.
It created a darkness over the city with a sonic boom. This boom was so big that you could feel it in PEI and Cape Breton, which are 100 or 200 miles away or something. It's it was pretty wild. Even windows were blown out throughout the entire city as far as Truro.
Jesus.
Blown. Yeah.
What the heck? Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard it described like this ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just seemed like it was maybe just the downtown area. And
the harbor floor. Yeah, the harbor floor was visible for a moment. Apparently,
what? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Which resulted in tsunami as well.
I was about to say a tsunami must have happened.
What the heck?
So
I feel like I didn't know anything about the Halifax explosion other than it involves ships and the Halifax Harbour. I feel like I didn't know any of this.
I know I knew some stuff, but I didn't know as much as I know now. So
hell no.
I feel like we definitely learned it when we were young and just I
don't know if I did. I mean, Vince Coleman. So did, essentially, the Heritage Minute, and then not much more.
That's what you know.
yeah, basically. Oh my God, that's just freaking wild.
So there we go. I just had
that's a nice light you get in there. Jeez.
It's the only light my apartment gets. So.
My light is behind me, so I hope, it's not going to shine on my face. It's fine.
My apartment, it doesn't get any natural light, so this is like all just fake light. That's it.
It looks good, though. It looks real good. Okay, more about all this destruction. Holy shit.
Yeah. Right. Back to the destruction. The tsunami wave, 60 feet high, like crazy wave. It actually pushed the Emo all the way to the other side of Dartmouth. So the Emo the other ship involved, completely over there. This wave also devastated the Turtle Grove Mi'kmaq community on the opposite side of Dartmouth. Their community was devastated from this. There was one story where crewmen from the Mont Blanc actually, when they got to shore, saw a woman, a Mi'kmaq woman with her child, and tried to tell her to run, but didn't know the language barrier. So he took her baby and ran with her baby to make her fall.
To make her smart.
No, it worked. And then when they got to like safe place in the woods, he gave the baby back and like sheltered them, and they survived.
Wow.
But a lot of people.
That just gave me goosebumps.
Guys, body language is so important. Steal that baby to save
I know.
lives.
It's very traumatizing, but it worked.
Yeah.
So,
oh my Lord.
During the blast, the captain of the Emo died instantly as well as several crew on the Emo because they were just close to the blast zone.
So I guess those guys didn't get off their ship because they thought, well, we had a bump. They're on fire, but we're fine. Holy moly.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because they wouldn't even, they're like, why are these guys so scared of fire? Like,
yeah.
Fire
all but one of the Mont Blanc crew did survive. They actually got to the other shore in time.
Okay.
All but one. It's one of those things like you shouldn't die for no reason, but they all left the ship and they left this floating bomb just by itself. So it's like,
but like
not
she said, what were they supposed to do? They can't gear it out away. They can't do anything.
But if someone was on there, I mean, I don't know how ships work. I feel like it's not just one person. Like there has to be more. But just maybe they could have tried to
shield
steer it. But maybe they could have tried to steer it away.
The crew that was inside the ship actually did survive. It was the people standing on the deck that didn't.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So a lot of people, even close to the deck, they assumed drowned because of this tsunami wave that had happened because they just got pulled in
and like all turned up underwater and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's estimated 86 children died on their way to school that day.
Oh my God. And this is during World War I. Their dads and brothers are away, and it's just a bunch of women and kids.
Oh I mean, there's definitely some men around too. There was like businesses popping up. There were a lot of families there at this time. So another thing that happened is after the initial blast, like you said, Megan, I think you said it, the debris fall down. So, and it's like this oily black disaster that just rains on everyone for like, I heard up to 10 minutes of just debris.
Wow.
Sorry, now I just got chills. That's terrifying.
Yeah. You'll see from slide 8, if you want to go.
Do I want to see it?
Look.
Yeah,
I think I've
seen this photo before.
This was all homes and buildings and
Jesus.
It's just leveled. Yeah.
Those trees look like they're like Charlie Brown Christmas trees, like they're twigs.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. Everything was just destroyed. If you go to the next slide I have, you'll see in the red, that's the area of complete devastation, like the photo before.
Wow.
And look at the tsunami.
The tsunami spread. Yeah, you can see how wide that was. And then the area of orange is where there was just significant destruction.
Jesus.
So,
this is I didn't know half of this shit, honestly.
Back to Barbara, our 14-year-old. She actually had been outside and the blast carried her up a hill a third of a mile. She didn't even know what was going on. She was separated, like her boots just stayed in the ground as her body flew. She was just covered in injuries, the black soot that had fallen. And her family's home, they had just made, by the way. They had just moved into a brand new home.
I just finished. I just painted the front door.
Just put the last coat of paint on. What?
Exactly.
I just updated my address with the post office.
And tragically, she was actually the only one in her family out of this.
Holy shit.
5 siblings and her parents to survive.
So was her dad? Was her dad home? Her dad wasn't in work.
He was at work, but he worked at a factory or a business
in the area.
Richmond. Yeah,
and she was 14, and she lost her entire family.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Here's a slightly better story.
Thank you.
I need an upper, please.
There was a father, Charles Upham. He was awoken that morning to hear his children crying in the next room. So he had 2 of his children, Millicent, age 9, and Archie, age 7.
Cute names.
I know, they're so cute.
Archie and Millicent.
Yeah. Also, if somehow he was awoken by his kids, but not the explosion.
he had a hard day at work.
Yeah, he had gone to bed from working. So,
but I mean, how? Okay, well, I guess how hard his job is.
I mean, I slept through Hurricane Juan, so I really can't judge here.
I woke up to Erin, my stepmom, shaking me, holding Callum, being like, "Get in the basement!" And I was like, "What the fuck?" So we went down the basement, and I was asleep on the futon, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. And then, of course, the next day wasn't quite like this.
I'm not forgiving. Slept through the largest man-made explosion before here. I'm not forgiving that.
Fair.
He's like, "Keep it down."
He woke up, and his actions ultimately saved his children. So, unfortunately, Millicent was facing the window when this happened, so she immediately lost an eye from this shattered glass. Archie had glass shattered into the back of his skull, which they found for years later. Luckily,
what?
Wow.
Luckily, they were okay otherwise. He took the runner from their rug, threw it out the window, and used it as a slide to get his children out. Unfortunately, his other children, his wife, the front half of the house is already gone. It was up in flames, and he tried to go back, but there was just nothing to really go back to.
I thought you said this was an tragic. Upper.
Yeah,
I know. His 2 children survived.
Yeah, because half the family died, not the whole family. Are you not listening to the story? I don't understand.
Unfortunately, when it comes to Halifax explosion, having some survivors is considered
fair.
That's how tragic this was. Families were just obliterated. We'll get into more of that later.
Yeah, and we're happy that a little girl only lost one eye, and we're like, oh, good. Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just surviving, being in that area was incredible. An actual good story was I
don't believe you, but girl. Okay.
She was just almost 2. During the explosion, she actually got pushed back into this little ash pan under a stove, and she wasn't found the next day. But because the stove was still warm, it kept her from freezing. And she was found the next day.
Very different. And then she was cooked alive in the oven.
No, okay, she survived because of this. She was just perfectly hidden away almost. And
oh my god,
it was Ash Pan Annie. So it was
Ash Pan. Oh, that's so cute.
I mean, so many things had to go right for her to make it.
Found her. Yeah,
wow. She was meant to survive.
Yeah,
exactly. When I was at church growing up, when I was really little, probably maybe 6 or 7, this old lady went to my church who was a survivor of the Halifax explosion. She told me. Yeah, she told me about. After it happened, she remember seeing this mom with her 2 daughters holding their hands, and her eyes were hanging out of their sockets. And I was like, that just shocked me. I was like, I can only imagine her. She was my age seeing it.
Hold on. But she's like, let me talk to this little 6-year-old and tell her the story.
It's like this. It's not as bad as seeing it in real life.
Fair.
Yeah, but okay, so I'm so glad that you've heard the story, but you're 6 years old at church, and she's like, and then
I was young. I don't know exactly my age, but I was really little.
Eyeballs.
Yeah.
So if you want to know where Lindsay's obsession with true crime and all things weird started, that's her origin story.
Yeah, it's from the lady at church, which I wish I could go back now and ask her more questions.
Tell me more about the eyeballs.
She is most definitely not with us anymore, but
you don't know. She could be 130. Trying to think of how old she would have had to be.
I feel like with my research, I would have found out that there was a survivor.
Survivor still alive. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah. she was pretty elderly when she told me this story. So
you know what? And I guess that's part of it. So either you died instantly, you were maimed, maybe you died from that, or you were outside the blast and you were near enough to see these people that had like missing eyes, missing limbs, and just,
or you have major PTSD, basically.
Oh, 100%. I have to imagine, even if you weren't directly affected, I mean, Halifax is still not a very big city. Like, you knew someone who was murdered, like, or not murdered, but knew someone that was killed. That bomb murdered. But I would imagine a lot of these people, if they came back from fighting and had PTSD, if they didn't then they definitely did now, because this is very like war, like, you know, see that kind of destruction. And oh my God.
By the way, on slide 10, you'll see a picture of Barbara, and you'll see a picture of some children who have been injured in the hospital.
Poor
so
babies.
Survivors, but yeah.
Barbara looks awesome. That haircut is something.
I want that dress.
The dress is great. Seeing little kids, that is just freaking heartbreaking, man. They're like little babies. Oh.
And you know, they were probably looking up the windows, and so 300 people were either blinded or partially blinded, estimated.
Because they're all looking at this burning.
Was it because of the shrapnel and things like that, or was it like the actual blinding light of it?
A lot of the glass. I think glass is a big contributor, because all the windows, like every window pretty much in Halifax, shattered.
Yeah.
So
God, glass sales next year.
Someone's like,
Chantel sees a business opportunity in Halifax.
Chantel's discount glass.
Well, to make matters worse.
Perfect.
The next day,
sorry.
This is what I wanted.
Has it been like nice?
Yeah. Well, the weather was actually pretty nice for Halifax the day it happened. It was
That's rare.
40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. So, you know, a winter day, but not. Yeah,
it's a warm winter day. Yeah,
5 degrees.
Anything above
December
0
is like summertime.
Yeah.
Like it's different. It's different than 5 degrees in the summer. It's like, ooh,
they all had their bathing suits on. They were ready to go.
couple six packs.
Canadian
this is great.
So
yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, the next day a blizzard hits.
Oh, that's right.
It covered Halifax in snow. So the temperatures dropped to minus 26 Celsius and minus 16 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Sorry, minus 26?
That is such a drastic drop.
But again, that's so classic Halifax,
cold.
Right? Like,
so you can imagine, so lots of problems with this. First off, any
no one has
people
a house.
who had any sort of remaining house would try to stay in their house at night, but all the windows are gone. So you can imagine how cold and freezing this was. At this point, they're also try to set up shelters and different hospitals capacity. Everyone's just trying to find a safe place to go.
And the hospitals have no windows as well, because
they had to try to
hang
hang things over the windows, but it was freezing.
Oh my God.
Just getting through this blizzard the next day was terrible. And it also greatly impeded the rescue as well.
Yeah.
So with the city covered in snow, like they were going through buildings, trying to find people, trying to find survivors. And this just greatly impeded that with the level of
nature, man.
Snow. Yeah.
Do you think that having a giant explosion, did that somehow like mess with the atmosphere? Because I remember during 9/11, all of the smoke that affected weather in Nova Scotia where we were. Or was it just the
storm was coming up the coast, so I think it was hitting either way.
It was just like the worst timing possible.
Yeah, it was just the worst timing, and people were trying to find shelter, which honestly, that one of the good things is Haligoians really came together at this time and found shelter for a lot of people. They had numerous buildings were offering shelter. And this is where some of the, just want to make sure I don't skip over it, the rescue efforts come in. So this is some of the better stuff, I guess.
Finally, some good news.
I don't know. I have trust issues now.
So like I said, remember when Vince Coleman sent out his message? It actually reached Boston.
Oh, I love Boston.
10 a.m. their time. So not that long after the explosion, Boston knew what was going on.
Something was happening.
And their mayor so Boston was one of the few cities that was ahead of the game. They already had a committee for public safety established because even though the year prior, America hadn't entered the war yet, they knew that it might be inevitable because this war had been raging for so long that America was going to get pulled in. So they had already established a committee for public safety. So they had all these supplies and people ready to aid.
Smart.
So the mayor put out a notice, sent it to Halifax, do you need some help? All right, I didn't hear anything. So we're going to say that's a yes. And
the story's I called and they didn't answer. And that's not like them. So we're going to go check. We're just going to make sure.
2 hours later, they had a train full of supplies, doctors, nurses, surgeons, Red Cross workers, anesthesiologists, ophthalmologists, and reporters, because they wanted to spread the word of what's going on here. They sent them up to Halifax. They arrived by 10 p.m. that night. That's how fast they got this stuff together.
On the day of. And this is like in 1917. Wow.
And think about this time too. Canada and the U.S. were not besties by any means. They'd during the American Revolution, a lot of the United Empire loyalists who were loyal to Britain came up to Nova Scotia. There was tensions between the places. Even up to 6 years ago, Americans had openly said they were trying to take Canadian land. They're like, that's on our agenda.
Or you don't mean 6 years ago, now, right?
6 years ago from 1917.
I'm did I miss something?
No, they're cool with us having our land now. But back then, they were just we're going to probably take that too, because we've already pushed Britain out of
super
America,
awkward.
So. And Boston, obviously, we went to Boston last year. The Tea Party,
Boston,
very
yes.
Britain do Boston was not on their side. So, so the Canadian-U.S. relations had been strained for some time. So the fact that Boston did this was even more of it actually was such a big deal that they would. It's
very stand up. It's just sometimes it's not about politics, just people, just fellow humans, So.
Other monetary donations and supplies came in from all over the place. So Ontario federal government sent in, the British government sent £1 million, which is 100 million today. The West Indies, South America, Australia, China, New Zealand.
Oh my God.
Even the king at the time, King George V, sent over his personal money. People were quick to send aid to Halifax.
And there was no GoFundMe or anything. It's just
I know. I know. And they got, and in fact, this time too, the word was getting out, and Chicago sent $250,000 because apparently Halifax helped Chicago during the Great Chicago Fire. I didn't know that.
Well.
Turn the favor.
You put out my fire, I give you new eyeballs or new glass.
New York,
so much glass.
New York and the northeastern states also donated supplies and monetary support. So a lot of people came to the aid, and even more important, Halifax itself came to its own aid with this, citizens of Halifax helping each other, offering what they could. Dr.
a true Haligonian.
Yes, there was one doctor, Dr. Clement Ligor. He's the first Black doctor to practice in Nova Scotia. He treated hundreds of patients at no charge during this time. Another hero of the explosion.
Nice,
so
amazing.
People were offering their services. Even though he'd hadn't always been treated very well with practicing.
Yeah,
a Black man in Nova Scotia
wasn't being treated very well.
Yeah. So he had his own practice, but he opened the doors and treated so many people. Local businesses donated supplies and efforts, and even med students were called to the aid. So there was one med student mentioned in the book I read, Dorothy Murray. She learned anesthesiology on the spot and estimated to give less to children, which luckily worked out. But how
Thank
dangerous.
God. Because
you
would have killed a bunch of kids, more kids.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, now listen, I only have a 60% average right now, but just give me a chance. Let me get in there.
Yeah. Apparently she was the only one in her class who actually didn't really practice it that much. So, but they're like, you said,
we are desperate. Dorothy, get in here.
It kind of reminded me of I feel like Chantal, if you were called to the scene as a nurse, you would just be like, yep, I'm getting in there. I'm doing
I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Too much.
They needed people to help. So all the help they could get, and the city came together. So that was one of the positive things to see out of all this.
It's always nice. It's nice to hear. I mean, you do hope that if the world were to go to shit, that it's okay. You watch all these scary movies and you're afraid to help people because you think about like, well, what are their motives? But for something like this, where it was a freak accident and everyone just comes, it just makes you like, a lot of bad stuff happened. But, I think it was Mr. Rogers that said like, look for the helpers, who just come to help. And like, that it's just nice. It's nice to see people helping people. It's so cliche, but you don't see it a lot anymore.
Yeah. And they were, at times they were concerned about people looting like the destruction area and stuff. So they had soldiers who were in town.
What was there to
loot? But
what was glass shards?
Apparently it wasn't a big problem. Like people were actually just not focused on stealing.
It's like I have bigger things to worry about. I have
my eye is over there.
This is my eye. Like,
so you had to have a pass to even get in the area. So you had to have a special pass. So
I lost my pass in the blast. It flew away. Can I just you know me,
the
right?
Passes were issued post blast pass.
Post blast pass. Got it.
Yeah. So just to like, keep people from walking around there. Obviously it was very dangerous too. And people were buried. And so Chebucto Road School, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's still in Halifax today. It was actually, all the windows again were blown out. So it was used as a morgue during this time. And also, I know you know this already, but a lot of Titanic survivors had come to, or victims and survivors had come to Halifax.
The ghosts floated
in from 1912. So there actually had been an identification system for victims kind of established here because we'd had to do this before. So back then, of course, there was different, we didn't have dental records or like fingerprinting and DNA, obviously. So they had to go by what people were wearing or what they looked like. And unfortunately, a lot of the clothes were just, a lot of the bodies are just missing things, missing limbs, or just figured. It was very difficult to identify. So they had to have the system to try to figure it out. So if you go to slide 13, you'll see that picture of just the bodies lying down in the morgue with all the sheets on them. And people had to go there to try to identify their family. So
based on like faces, maybe how they looked, or maybe they had something on them that looked familiar.
I remember that gold tooth.
Back to usually probably
I'll need to buy glass later with that.
Which was another thing. It's like, I had to hope that like people are just, not trying to loot these bodies. Like we need these to identify the people. Even Barbara, going back to Barbara, her aunt came and she was like, hey, it's me. And she's like, nah, you're not Barbara. She's like, no, I am. But like, she was just so like, dirty and like her hair was like,
no. I think that the aunt was like, I already have 10 kids. I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't see her. I'm right here. What? Nope, don't see her. There's no freaking way. Oh,
it just goes to show how like people didn't even recognize their own family. So
that were alive and speaking. Like
imagine how
they didn't have glass in their head.
It was really hard for children to be identified because sometimes they end up going to the wrong home temporarily because people thought, oh, is that my child? Oh, it's not my child. Like,
sorry, Lindsay. Would you ever look at your kids and be like, I don't know. Like, I feel like your kids.
In trauma, you could be like, I don't know. Stuff could happen. They're traumatized. You know what?
It's about the same weight.
Also, some people were sent outside the city too, so it's like trying to reconnect with family after became even harder. So some of this stuff was very difficult. Children were eventually who lost families or lost parents were adopted or put in orphanages. And some people are really cruel about their adoption methods. Like I basically want the blonde-haired, blue-eyed children or something. Like people would be like,
I would have been fine. I get it.
They want Chantal only.
I also Megan. Whoa!
Chantal just mentioned it, so I was
and Megan exits the podcast.
I would have been desired too by a family if I had glass in my head and I'm missing an eye.
Yeah, but we know how traumatic your fan fictions were that you would have been qualified over that.
So. Oh my god,
I would have turned to crime so fast.
Yeah, because it wasn't just looks. They also wanted, they didn't want children who had any.
They don't want
disabilities. Period.
I at least hide. I hide my trauma. Okay, Megan.
I like to
Chantal puts on a brave face. You
write fan fiction.
You cry over literally everything. So
yeah, that too.
Also true.
Yeah.
I own it. I cried like
if it makes you feel better.
Megan's like, I cried this morning.
I did.
I would adopt you, Megan.
Thank you. I would adopt me. I would adopt all of you. I was reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Has anyone read that book yet?
No.
So there's this one little part where these people are falling in love, and I'm like, that's just so damn beautiful. Like, I cry all the time. Anyway,
you're gonna cry at this next. You're gonna cry at this next part too. Because,
amazing. Can't wait.
Yeah.
As well as humans, you can imagine how many pets were out there.
That
were killed.
I'm looking at
SPCA,
my baby right now.
Yeah, SPCA helped rehome pets, but a lot of them were like they're euthanized because they were so badly injured or. So.
They had these bald patches that never grew back.
Yeah.
No, I still want all the bald dogs and cats. Kids, I want a full head of hair on a kid. Sorry.
Yeah.
and 2 eyes. I have to have 2 eyes on a kid. Otherwise,
so you're not interested in Halifax then at this time.
Are you one of those Halifax explosion orphans? No, I'm not interested. I'll wait.
This is the exact type of behavior that I was referencing.
Yeah.
Guilty.
A minute ago. All right.
Man,
so,
that's freaking sad, man. Like, I imagine going through all of that, and maybe even you're too young to articulate like who your parents were, and you know how you're so young, you kind of like know your aunts and uncles, but only in context, only when maybe they're around you. So maybe family came, and you're right, and if they're really,
they figured some kids might not be able to say, "Oh, my mom is Chantal."
So and so,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or hope nobody ever says that.
News to me. Or I just think about like these kids, maybe they have like injuries where, they look very different and they're definitely, shocked and in shock still. And to have a family come and they don't make that connection, that is heartbreaking. I'd like to think that years later, as everyone gets older, maybe they could find each other. But to be a kid and like your whole family's gone.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
A lot of families were separate, they maybe never knew if they had a survivor because they were children. Like you said, they can't identify
who they are even. Like
exactly.
For a long time, I thought that my mom's name was Mom. I was like, who's Patty? Yeah. No, your name is Mom.
Like, yeah.
Grayson knows my name now, and I'm like, but it's still Mom. But
yeah.
He's leveled up to the next, like, oh my God, she's a person.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, she has an actual name that's not Mom. Weird.
I'm gonna call you Mom from now on, just to keep it consistent.
Yeah. Just around your kids so they understand.
Yeah. I mean, half the day that's what I'm called, so it's fine.
There we go.
Mom.
She'll still answer.
So with this tragedy, a lot of people actually thought at the time that it was actually Germany that caused this, because rightfully so, like during the war, like we got attacked. Not the case, but they wanted to hold someone accountable for what happened. So there was an inquiry that was held pretty much right afterwards. So the EMO's captain, like I said, passed during the explosion, as well as the harbor pilot for the EMO. So it left Captain Lebedek and Mackey, the harbor pilot, being charged with manslaughter in February of 1918 after this inquiry determined that the Mont Blanc was solely at fault.
I don't know. That doesn't seem right. I feel like there was a lot of people who made a lot of mistakes.
Right.
Yeah.
So with lack of evidence, though, the charges were never upheld. And then in 1919, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled both ships were equally to blame. And no one was formally held liable. So
that's so hard because because it doesn't change anything. Like, oh, it's your fault when it really isn't. And then what? Then they get executed or sent to jail and it doesn't change anything.
It does seem like both of them were at fault. Like both captains were at fault. They both did stuff that they shouldn't have done. There was no flag. There was no
it was like a dick swinging contest. Like
it was.
Yeah.
And then it killed like 2,000 people. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm kind of inclined to think like, if Mont Blanc was in the right lane first and single first, that they should have been the lane. But ultimately, if the other ship says, no, I'm going to stay in this lane, like maybe you should have taken that course earlier. So like there's so many,
I mean,
both
so
of them
many
are
things.
to blame. I think they are
so
both to blame.
But like, who's to say if they would have had the flag up? That's
I was just gonna say,
we're full of ammunition. Maybe the other one would have been
wide berth.
That's cool. I'll get out of your way. Like
Totally.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So
it's just so many things went wrong. And honestly, that's one of the big lessons that came of this, that so many safety measures were just dropped along the way. A lot of it being because it's wartime, they let things slide. So even if one of these mistakes had been addressed, like maybe this wouldn't have happened. Like it just goes to show how important it is to, if
follow the rules,
protocols in place, just follow the rules. Are there for a reason.
I thought rules are meant to be broken.
And not here. Not when there's thousands of lives at stake.
Pounds and pounds of explosives.
If you're traveling on a bomb, you should probably play by the rules. So that is
just saying. Hot
but
take.
Just a thought.
In all seriousness, that I think is the big lesson to be learned here. And in the aftermath, there were some things that came of this. So Canada-USA relations improved as a result of this. So now we have such a close, countries are pretty closely connected. This was
I didn't realize this was one of the catalysts.
Yeah.
Tragedy does bring people together. It's so sad to say, but I just think if you are empathetic, you're like, holy crap, like that could happen to us. And so you want to make sure like I got your back, you got my back. So I mean, I guess that's a benefit.
Yeah. So Boston, Halifax, that connection really improved those relations. So another thing that happened positively was maritime rules were enhanced. So they have more rules for identifying your cargo,
good
storage of hazardous materials, and then the harbor traffic control rules were like set up to be more strict and to hopefully avoid something like this in the future.
God, I mean, like, yeah, it just sucks that had to happen for rules to be put in place.
Other positive, I guess, was that there was medical enhancements made in the specialty of like eye care. So ophthalmology, they learned a lot because of the Halifax explosion.
They had a lot of things to practice on.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was actually already a school for the blind in Halifax, and the Halifax explosion actually was what spurred on the establishment of the Canadian National Institute for the Blind.
No way!
It was founded in 1918 after the Halifax explosion. So, like I said, they already had a school. It was actually already law that people who were blind were provided free education here. So,
and that was back in 1917 or whatever.
It was established in the late 1800s, the school, but
that seems so like
Canadian National Institute for the Blind was established in 1918 after the Halifax explosion, was because of the explosion that, because they had so many Haligonians who are now blinded and they needed to go on with life. Like there's moms that need to take care of their kids. So they taught them Braille and just how to function and do daily tasks without their sight. So,
and I have to imagine that's such a different experience. Like I luckily have great eyes, but imagine being born with eyesight and slowly losing it. You almost have maybe more time to learn because you know what's coming, but to be overnight blinded, like, or you have a child that's now blind. Oh my God. You have to relearn how to do.
Up and you can't see, like,
oh wow.
Terrifying. They also, I know you're aware of this probably, but the Hydro Stone in the north end of Halifax. So
I used to live in that area.
Ooh, there you go. It's so they brought over the Hydro Stone, which is basically crushed granite. It was going to minimize any fire damage in the future. But all the homes in Halifax were made of wood before this. After the explosion, they wanted to have homes that were more fire resistant. And so that's where the Hydro Stone came in. So you'll notice if you go to the north end of Halifax, you will see lots of homes with these stones. It's called Hydro Stone. So
beautiful area, FYI. And there's a little area, I forget the name of the zone, but it has a cute little shops on one side, and there's a Starbucks there now.
I love the Hydro Stone.
It's so cute. So I used to live on Stair Street, which is
Oh,
near
wow.
like Agricula and what's the
Yeah,
other name?
you would have been totally gone.
Oh,
if you'd
dead.
been there in
Totally
1978.
dead. And the house
Yeah.
that my parents lived in was built obviously after. Well, they didn't build it, but it's like an old 100-year-old home. And that was wood. So where our street was, the street in front of it, those are all the stone houses. So those were all built probably right after, and we were just a little bit after that. But it's a beautiful area. When we all go back together, we'll have to do a little like walkthrough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that whole North End neighborhood would have been pretty devastating.
They call it the new Brooklyn now. Like it's Brooklyn vibes
2.0.
Yeah.
They actually just beyond that was Africville with the Black community. But I guess from what I've read that they were a little bit more sheltered, so they didn't have.
If I look at your map,
definitely destroyed.
They would have had some water though, based on your map.
Yeah, they had damage and people did perish there as well. So
and they definitely lost their windows, as we know.
Yeah, the window situation was not good, and I can guarantee their community probably didn't get as much of the help that other.
Oh, they probably got none.
Unreal.
Right. That's a whole different story for a different episode.
Yeah, the Mi'kmaq and the Black communities did not probably do very well. And Mi'kmaq community never reestablished at Turtle Grove. Actually, this explosion.
Oh my god!
Oh wow!
So the Mi'kmaq people who did survive were displaced elsewhere in the province.
Which that's par for the course. Them being displaced.
I have one more downer to say before I get into the slightly better end. Did you watch Oppenheimer?
Not yet. It's on my list.
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
No
did
spoilers.
You hear Halifax briefly mentioned?
Yeah.
So I've actually not seen it. I'm going to see it, but I was told that it was mentioned in the movie. So Oppenheimer, I guess, studied the effects of the Halifax explosion when creating the atomic bomb.
Great.
So, yeah.
I mean, we did it first, so
our disaster created more disaster.
Cool. I mean, not our intention, but
helped create more disaster.
Inspired.
So, unfortunately, that was out of the positive things in the aftermath that I've stated. That was not one of them. So that's unfortunate. That
listen, white men got a white man. So
it was positive. Yes. So if you go to the very last page on my slide 16, we'll get to the memorials and different traditions that have spun from this. So we have grave sites in Halifax. Yeah. So we have lots of grave sites in Halifax, like Fairview Cemetery has quite a few Halifax explosion victims there. Many are still unidentified. Unfortunately, it was just, and
so
probably
sad.
because their family are also gone too. And
probably nobody left too.
Yeah. So, but they.
Oh my god, that's just so sad to be buried and no one knows who you are, and then if someone knows you in real life and they just assume, well, they must have died. But
and they have no way. And sometimes the bodies were just there's nothing there,
right?
And they don't even know how many bodies are. Like we know there's some bones maybe, but it's like how many were here. It was really so
sad.
There's some grave sites in Halifax you can visit to. For the victims. There's a memorial at Fort Needham Memorial Park in the north end of Halifax, and they actually have a service there every year on the anniversary on December 6th.
That's nice.
There's also 2 memorial sites where the anchor of the Mont Blanc and the gun and the cannon had flown after it exploded. So one is 2.35 miles away, the other one is 3 kilometers away, or 3 miles away.
I saw that on the map. That's why they're there.
Yeah, that's where they landed. So
I'm getting chills again. That's horrifying.
Yes. I'm trying to get I didn't have the kilometers ready, but 3.8 kilometers away or over 4 kilometers away. So that's how far these pieces of the ship flew. That's the only remaining pieces of the Mont Blanc. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you can go there and see part of the anchor and part of the gun cannon if you choose to. Also, there is the Maritime Museum at the Atlantic, has a really great Halifax explosion exhibit. I was actually there this past summer. I'm really impressed with that museum total. They have a
I love it there.
They have so many like ship
mini ships.
Yeah,
I love models. I'm obsessed with anything
models.
miniature.
If you like a ship model, you go to this museum. You'll be impressed. So
I feel like I don't even remember the Halifax explosion element. It's mostly the Titanic that I think people, I mean, because that's such a big like worldwide thing everyone's obsessed with. But we're gonna go home this summer. We might not go to Halifax though, but taking Damien there is on my list because it's just so fascinating. And the fact that so many of these things have that Halifax connection, it's just like, oh, Halifax has some cool history that we can kind of learn more about.
Really, really meaningful history there. So St. Paul's Church, which is at the right by City Hall.
In that little like mini part where the dome used to be.
So actually a piece of from the explosion is still in the wall there. You can go see.
Well, I didn't see that. Damn.
There was even a broken glass. They kept one window there. The broken glass is shaped like the profile of someone's head, and it wasn't actually a head, but the whole rumor was like someone's head had gone.
It's the ghost.
Yes, they think. Yeah. So
that's very very cool.
Oldest church in Halifax, so it's probably haunted because it's.
Obviously,
but anyway, you can go there and you can still see that in the piece in the wall and then the broken glass to give you an idea.
It's so wild that this stuff still exists like over 100 years later that people haven't like fucked with it, that it's still there. It's great.
Exactly. And then finally, I'll leave you with this because this is a tradition I think is really sweet to this day that Nova Scotia sends a Christmas tree to Boston every year as a thank you. So every like summer, they actually have scouts go and find the best tree in Nova Scotia. And it's considered an honor to have your tree chosen.
I want to get on that team where we're like out looking for trees. No, not that. Oh, that's the one. That'd be such a cool world.
It's not like they use like scouts, like probably Girl Guides, Boy Scouts to like find them. I don't know.
Like actual scouts? I imagine like a scout. Like
I thought they were talking about like scouts, like kids, but I don't know. Maybe
I don't know if I would trust a kid with the best Christmas tree.
This one.
The magic with Christmas is so strong with children. I would definitely trust a child to pick out the best tree.
No, because they would pick out those cute little like wonky ones. You want to give them like the I would get like a type A, like a rich
Megan,
snob.
you as a child would not have been picking out some rinky-dink Christmas.
No, you would have had the best.
You would have been like,
see, I disagree. I think I would find one and I would bond with it, and I'd have a story. And I'd be like, no one's gonna take it if I don't take it, and then I'd probably write fan fiction about that tree. I don't know.
Yes, probably.
So we actually sent one that year, 1917, and there was like a gap in between. And then in the 1970s, the tradition restarted, and it's been going strong ever since. So it goes to the Boston Common. The tree is sent down with a Nova Scotia flag, like tree for Boston.
That's so nice.
If you were in Boston and you go to the Boston Common, you see that tree up. That's from Halifax, and that was
this year, you guys. Let's do it, Christmas.
Thank you every year.
I think
so
much.
For their help. It's gonna be a work trip, right?
That's right. Just expense it, write it off. That's a write-off.
Yeah. Write it off.
Yeah, Halifax actually spends a lot of money every year making sure this happens, and everyone is down because this is just such a important tradition to have. So we should definitely go see it somewhere.
Yeah. I feel like now we have to, because Boston is not necessarily the birthplace of this podcast, but it is like
that is where we came up with the idea to start it. So.
My God.
I mean, true. I just feel like I think we knew summer before that like I think we knew something was going to happen. But when we went to Boston Salem, that was like, the feels like this has to happen.
Yeah,
so I feel like it would just
Boston bar. We came together and thought of this idea. So,
God, that was such a fun night.
Guys, I'm Googling the tree. It's really beautiful that they do it each year. They put like a little plaque out in front of it and everything.
Oh, guys, we have to go.
Yes, I agree. We should definitely go. I think it's really sweet. So, and that's my episode on the Halifax explosions. So
awesome!
Wow, we did it.
I feel like you taught me so much more than I ever even knew. I knew I knew tiny tidbits. I knew about the tree, but
or maybe I'm just at an age now where I'm like taking it in more as well, like actually interested.
I
was never a history kid, like ever.
I was for Halifax stuff, but either I forgot some things, or I just really I actually read literally a full
Wait, you forgot things from when you were like 12?
I know.
How dare you?
It's so wild that now we're reading this stuff for pleasure.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing. Lindsay, awesome job. You honestly taught me so much more than I knew. I'm not kidding when I said that the Heritage Minute was like the foundation and then the tree. Yeah. And that is almost all that I really knew. So this was just wild. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Like I knew that we talked in SOS. What do you call it?
Is that Morse code?
Morse code.
Yeah, Morse code. Thank you. I'm like, what's that thing?
What's
yeah, that's like about all that I knew about it. I'm like, okay, Alexander Graham Bell hasn't been around yet, but like maybe he has. I don't know.
Oh yeah, telephones.
Maybe he was
invented.
like there. And he was like,
had been invented. Oh my god, I'm showing my stupidity right now.
Well, right. we knew for sure that they had windows. No, that's gonna stay in.
Listen, they're gonna figure it out at some point, so they might as well just figure it out now. I am not that bright.
Yeah, I'll be doing more historical stories, so by the end of this, you will be very educated on history. So,
all right, that's like Vadim. Whenever he starts telling me anything on a map, he's like, "All right, what do I need to teach you?" I'm like, "Everything. Where am I on a map? I don't know." I go outside and I'm turned around.
Alexander Graham Bell lived in Cape Breton, so.
Oh, I know, guys. I've seen his house.
Megan probably, I have too, actually. So we'll have to do.
I went to the museum, and it was so much reading that I had to leave. Everything had a plaque.
She fell asleep.
No.
If I can relate,
it was like too much.
If I can relate him to the water in some way, I'll do an episode on him one day.
His house is on the water.
Thank you.
And then he had like the silver dart. Oh wait, so we're gonna have to probably backtrack a little bit and then do our goodbye. But I think if you want to say something about, that's my story, then we all, give you comments. Because honestly, that was really good. I was fascinated the whole time.
I did say that actually, and you gave comments.
Yeah,
so
we started commenting. So I think we're okay.
Yeah.
No, but then we have to say okay, well, goodbye, and then we ended.
What's our goodbye?
Yeah. I mean, we'll just that. So we'll say, okay, well, great, okay, bye everyone. And then your little, and then your little pre-recorded thing we'll add in after.
Mm-hmm.
But that was so good.
It was, yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. This is our first episode of Coast Files, so hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.
And if you didn't, don't tell us that you didn't. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening today. We loved having you. If you liked the episode, share with your friends, family, or anyone who would enjoy it. Also, take a minute to review the Coast Files podcast on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Leaving us a comment or like really helps. You can email us at coastfilespod@gmail.com, follow us on Instagram at coastfilespod, or visit our website at www.coastfiles.com. You can find the sources for today's episode on our website. See you next week with a new episode.